Now it's time for some decorative paper on our top. So I'll go ahead and put that on and clear these 3 holes. And then on the underside, I'll also go ahead and glue on these 3 additional little pieces of chipboard that I made to go behind the holes. Now we're ready to do a dry fit and see how long we need to cut our dowels. Now I've started out by putting our little stopper pieces right on the end of the dowels. I have not glued them in place yet, but I have them right exactly at the end of the 3 dowels. Remember, there was one that was a 1/4 inch and 2 that were 3/16 inch. So just get them right at the top of those dowels, but don't glue them in place yet. And then take each of your gears and put it in place and push it down. You don't want it to come all the way down because you need to have a little bit of room so that this can move freely. This is, you can see here maybe that this isn't moving really freely, so I'm going to ease up on it just a little bit. And now that can move very freely. So I'm going to repeat that for my other 2 gears. And when I'm satisfied that all the gears are moving freely, I'm just kind of checking from the side here to see how much space there is. Oh, I'm not sure how to say that. Maybe a little bit less than a piece of thin chipboard. But they're all moving freely and they're not popping up. So I'm going to turn it over to this side and use a pencil to mark the length of each one of those dowels. And when I cut these off, I'm going to cut them about 1/16 of an inch longer than where that mark is. So now I can remove the assembly, pop off these little stop pieces so that it'll be easy to cut these in my little saw, and then I'll be back. Once you've cut your dowels to length, go ahead and glue the stoppers on the top, and then I'm just using a black marker to go around the edge of the stoppers, and then also to come up on the bottoms of these little dowels. Since the inside of my box is black, then they won't show so much. And now we'll just put the gear assembly aside for a few minutes while we put our box together. Our box lid goes together just like the box base did. We'll put the shorter pieces on first, and then the longer pieces go inside of those short pieces, and then finally put the other short piece on the end. Just be a little more careful because remember that on the flip side of this piece you already have your decorative paper. So I'll put my box together and then I'll let it set aside to dry. So I have my box lid all put together now, and you can also see that I attached my frame on the top. Now I just used some score tape to do that because I didn't want to risk getting glue on my decorative paper here. So now I want to cover this with some black cardstock just so I won't see any of the rough edges of the chipboard. And to do that, I'm going to take some measurements, and first I'm going to measure on my lid here in a couple places and make sure that that is 3/4 of an inch, which it is. So I've got 3/4, and then I want to measure the height of my box, which is 2 3/8. So I'll write that down. And then I have 1/8 of an inch thickness here because I want to wrap to the inside. So 1/8 for that, and then I think I'll put 1/2 inch on the inside. So if I add up all of those, let's see, 2.5, 3 3 3/4. So my papers need to be 3 3/4 inch tall. And then for the front and the back, I'll measure here 7 7/8, and I'm going to have a 1/2 inch tab on either end. So the front and the back, 2 at 3 3/4 by 8 7/8. And for the sides, ignore this piece of score tape, I'm just prepping for another step. The sides we just want to cut exactly to length, so mine are 5 3/8. So the sides I'll have 2 at 3 3/4 by 5 3/8. So that's how to measure for the cardstock if you want to cover up your edges. So I'll get those pieces cut and do some scoring, and then I'll be back. So here are my 2 different pieces of black cardstock I have, and when I did my scoring I just followed what I had listed here. First I scored at 3/4 of an inch, then I counted over 2 3/8 from that, and then 1/8 from that, which left me a 1/2 inch on the end, and I did that on all 4 pieces. Now for the front and the back, I also scored a 1/2 inch in on either side because these will be the tabs that fold around to the sides. There isn't any side scoring on the smaller pieces. And then I think you can see that I've done some mitering here. So on the tabs, I just have them cut even with the main central 2 3/8 inch portion in my case, and then I've cut a 45-degree miter on to the corners here. And then on the bottom edges where we're going to wrap this tab to go around that 1/8 inch channel, this is similar to what we did on the bottom of the box, where you cut a 45-degree miter just in the 1/8 inch channel and then come straight out from there. So there's just a little 45-degree angle right there and then straight out here. And an easy way to cut, especially these big miters here, is to take this, your paper, and if you've got a mat like I do that has some 45-degree lines on it, you can just fold that tab so that you can get it lined up properly, and then fold it back out and hold your ruler on that line, and you can just cut those 45-degree miters with no difficulty. And then I've prepped these pieces with some score tape on the tabs. All have 3/8 inch tape. And then I have 5/8 just here on this 3/4 just because it's wider. And then on the smaller pieces I have 1/4 inch tape on the ends. So now I just need to prep my box lid with some score tape, and we'll be ready to attach these pieces. So I've prepped the front and the back of my box with some score tape. I also put a piece here in the middle just in case I add any embellishments that'll help anchor down the cardstock. And I'll just do a dry fit here and test to make sure everything's going to be okay. I'm watching this edge up here, especially at the top. I want that to come right to the edge, or it could come a little bit past that edge if necessary. And I'll go ahead and fasten my front and my back pieces on. So I'm sure it's difficult to see because it's black on black. You'll have to take my word that I've done the front and the back. And now I'm ready to do the sides. Now on the sides I'm going to put some handles on, so I've put a thicker piece of score tape here. And instead of putting score tape on the box on the top and the bottom, I just added an extra piece here on where it's going to hit on this side here, just so I don't have to worry about any overrun on my edges here. So now it's just a matter of, I'll just do a little dry fit here again and make sure everything's going to come together well. And I'm eventually going to put some pattern paper around this top, so if the miters aren't exactly perfect, most of that will be covered up, but do your best to get some good miter action in there. So I'll finish up with these two short sides. So I finished by doing some good burnishing both inside and out, and my box lid fits nicely on the box base. And now we can finish the lid by putting a frame of decorative paper on the top, and then doing whatever decorations you want to on the sides. And so I'll do that, and then I'll be back for handles. So I have my decorative paper on all the sides now, and I've also added some handles. And I should say that before I put the decorative paper down, I also, on top of the black cardstock, I put a strip of score tape just so that everything is firmly attached here. Now this kind of handle is, it's an older Prima handle, I think. But most of these handles get attached with brads, and the trick is to, well, not trick, but what you want to be sure of is that when you get the brads on the inside, that you get them mushed really well into it. So I know it's hard to see here, but mushed really so they're as flat as can be. And then for some added insurance, this is a piece of Tyvek that I've cut plenty long to span those brads, and I just colored it with some black ink so it wouldn't stand out so much, and put some score tape on it, and I'll put that on the inside here. I'll do it upside down so you can see what I'm going to do. Put that on there and then burnish again, and that'll make sure that those rough edges of those brads won't tear up the paper on the bottom of the box. So yeah, you can use whatever kinds of handles you want. You can test your box. It may be that you feel that you don't need to have handles at all, that it will come off. So that's, personal choice. Once you've done all the decorating you want to do to your box lid, then it's time to attach the gears. Now when we do this, we'll do one at a time. I'm going to put glue. I'm going to start with the big one, and I'll put glue inside of this hole here. I want to make sure that if any glue gets on the top here, that I get after it with a toothpick or something, because you don't want any glue on the top, because then the gear would get stuck to it, and that would not be good. So I'm just using my detail gluer and making sure I stay down inside of the, I got a little glue right there on the front. I'm just going to take it off. Now here's my big gear and my stopper, and when I put this in, I'll want to make sure that it can turn freely. I have to support it from the back when you push it in. And then just make sure it's going freely, but there's not a lot of extra space there. And then I'll do that for the medium-sized gear. each time you add a gear, make sure it's still spinning freely. Now all my gears are attached and they're spinning freely. And this is the little build-up that I made with the 4 thicknesses of the ring chipboard and 1 solid on the top. And it should fit down on top of there. What we'll want to do is put, I'm using one of these Tim Holtz knobs, and the screw has some depth, so I'll put that screw in there and make sure that it's going to fit on there. I think that's going to work all right with 4 thicknesses. So I'll go ahead and attach this knob to this assembly here, just screwing that knob on. You can just use the short screw, that's fine, that's all you need. And I don't know if I said this when I made this piece, I did cut a piece of decorative paper to go on the top there. So I just took a moment to cut a strip of decorative paper that's a 1/4 inch wide. This, when I put this knob on here like that with that black, it just looked a little stark to me. So I'm going to just cover this edge around here with decorative paper. Obviously that's optional, but I'm going to do that on the chipboard piece that's raising the knob up. So the purpose of this ring shape here is to give us some gluing surface that avoids the stopper and attaches it to the big gear, so that we can just turn the gear by turning this knob here. And so just kind of put some pressure on that and see if it's turning. And it should with 4 layers of the medium weight chipboard in there. That will rise it up enough to avoid that little button, even with the thickness of the screw. If you don't have a thick screw like this, you might be able to get away with 3 ring thickness there. But I found that with the thickness of that screw, it takes a 4th ring. So now we'll just put glue on this ring. You want to make sure not to get it on the inside, because you can't let it get attached to that center post. It can only get attached to the gear itself, and avoid that center or else it won't spin. So give that a little bit of pressure, and then you can turn it. Don't turn it by turning that knob until that glue sets up, but turn it by going this way so that you make sure that it's not glued to that center post. And then to finish up the gears, you'll want to put something on the top of the 2 toppers here. I've just punched some 1/2 inch circles out of decorative paper and backed them with score tape and inked their edges, and they'll go right on the tops. But you could put obviously whatever you wanted on there. So there's the gears. And then on the bottom of the box I want to put some feet. I'm just using some little wheels. I think these are 1¼ inch wheels. You could obviously use whatever you want, and I'm just going to, whenever I paint these, I always leave the part that I'm going to glue bare so that it's a better gluing surface. I'll just probably hold these back, I don't know, a little bit from the edges, the same amount all the way around, and glue it on all 4 feet and let those dry. And then once your feet have set up and dried, your box will be completed. This is April with Knife Chronicles. I hope you've enjoyed making this project, and thanks for watching.